At my birthday celebration, she lifted her glass for a toast and declared it was to my future divorce payout. The table exploded in laughter. I chuckled too, then quipped, "That's amusing, darling. I moved all my assets to my sister's name just yesterday." The room fell into a stunned hush. The restaurant was noisy, upscale, packed with people who believed charisma could replace character. It was my 40th birthday dinner, an event my wife, Emily, had insisted on throwing. It wasn't really about honoring me, of course. It was a spectacle for her social circle, a stage to flaunt the latest chapter of her 5-year strategy. I was merely the centerpiece. We were nearing the end of the meal. The server had just placed a comically tiny, intricately designed dessert before me, adorned with a lone, flickering candle. Emily's closest confidant, a woman named Laura with the cold, calculating gaze of a predator, tapped her wine glass with a polished nail. "A toast," she proclaimed to the birthday man. Emily rose, glass in hand, her face glowing with a radiant, rehearsed smile. She played the role of the doting spouse perfectly. She waited for the chatter to subside, commanding the full attention of her parents, her sister, and her trio of best friends, her life's inner council. "To my incredible husband," she began, her voice laced with mock warmth, "a man of modest desires but a boundless heart." A few of her friends giggled, and she pressed on, her grin widening as she locked eyes with Laura. "To my future, the one we've all been pouring our hearts into. To my future divorce windfall." The table erupted, not just with laughter, but with a surge of victorious, cackling delight. Laura raised her glass and crowed, "Secure that fortune, girl!" They roared again, a pack of vultures reveling in a successful strike. They thought it was the wittiest, boldest jest ever, a brazen nod to the elaborate scheme they were all privy to. I didn't get mad, I didn't act wounded. I laughed too, a deep, authentic laugh. It was the laugh of someone who'd been patiently awaiting the punchline, and it was even sweeter than anticipated. I stood, picked up my own wine glass, and grinned at my wife. "That's hilarious, sweetheart," I said, my voice cutting through the suddenly silent table. "Funny you mention that." I took a sip of wine, savoring the pause. I already placed everything into an irrevocable trust under my sister's name yesterday. Happy birthday to me, I suppose. The silence that enveloped the table was the most exquisite sound I'd ever heard. It was thick, weighty, and profoundly gratifying, the kind of silence that follows a sudden, earth-shattering revelation. The gleeful faces froze, smiles dissolved, replaced by expressions of sheer, dumbfounded dread. Emily stared at me, her face paling, her glass trembling in her grip. They thought I was the fool. They had no clue I was the one orchestrating the trap. Let me be crystal clear, I'm not weak. I'm not a pushover. I'm a senior fraud investigator for a major insurance firm. I don't sit behind a desk. I work in the Special Investigations Division, tackling high-stakes, intricate fraud cases. My job is to dissect a seemingly perfect life and uncover the deception at its core. I sift through financial records, conduct surveillance, and interrogate people who have mastered the art of lying. I don't trust coincidences. I trust patterns. And for the past year, my marriage had been my most compelling case study. I met Emily 4 years ago. She worked in art curation, a role that paid little but carried immense social clout. She came from a family that projected wealth but, as I later learned, was a fragile facade propped up by crushing debt. I was a different kind of project for her. I wasn't born rich, but I'd built my own wealth. I was steady, accomplished, and to her likely dull. I wasn't her fantasy. I was her financial parachute. I wasn't naive. I spotted the warning signs early on. The way she'd casually mention a friend's new beach house, how her desires always seemed to escalate with my latest bonus. But for a while, I played along. I'd spent a decade in the gritty, cynical world of fraud investigation. Emily, despite her flaws, was a break from that. Our life together was straightforward. I thought, perhaps naively, that my stability could anchor something genuine, that she'd eventually outgrow her superficial roots. Our marriage was a calculated gamble. I demanded a prenuptial agreement that safeguarded all my pre-existing wealth. She brushed it off as a formality, signing it with a laugh. For 3 years, I played the role of the loyal, slightly clueless husband. I bankrolled her lifestyle, cleared her lingering student loans, and covered the down payment on a stunning home that was now legally ours. I was investing in our partnership, hoping for a return in loyalty and respect. The investigation into my own life began 3 months ago, sparked by a single odd detail. A credit card statement showing a recurring $500 charge for a consulting service I'd never heard of. It was small enough to go unnoticed, but my job has made me obsessive about details. I dug deeper. The service was run by a woman billing herself as a life strategist. A quick search revealed she was actually a high-end divorce consultant, specializing in helping affluent women maximize their settlements. My wife was paying a divorce coach while married to me. That's when the husband in me stepped aside and the investigator took over. I didn't confront her. You never tip off a suspect that they're under scrutiny. You quietly build your case. I treated my life like a fraud investigation. I installed a keylogger on our home computer, placed a GPS tracker on the car I'd bought her, and used my professional tools to dive into her finances and those of her inner circle. What I uncovered was a conspiracy. Emily, her friends, and their ringleader, Laura the divorce coach, had been plotting for over a year. Their group chat, which I now had full access to, was a goldmine of evidence, a detailed roadmap for defrauding a husband. They discussed which assets were marital property, strategized ways to goad me into an affair to trigger an infidelity clause, and even had a timeline. File for divorce after our 4th anniversary, claim half the house's value, and secure hefty alimony. My birthday dinner was meant to be a premature victory lap, a final jab at the fool funding his own ruin. They made a fatal mistake. They underestimated me. They thought I was just a dull insurance guy. They didn't know my job was to hunt people like them for a living. 2 days before my birthday, I acted. My sister is a partner at a leading law firm specializing in asset protection. I spent a full day in her office. We didn't just transfer assets to her name. That's too simple and easily contested. We executed a series of sophisticated, legally bulletproof maneuvers. We established an irrevocable family trust, a fortress immune to divorce proceedings. We moved all my premarital wealth, my investment portfolio, and most of my liquid assets into it, with my sister as trustee. Then we had my business formally purchase our house, our main marital asset, in exchange for a majority stake in a new holding company, also owned by the trust. In 8 hours, I'd legally shielded every significant asset from Emily and the divorce courts. All that remained in our joint names was a checking account with a few $1,000s and a pile of debt from her extravagant spending. So when I sat at that dinner and she made her toast, my laugh was genuine, the most satisfying laugh of my life. I'd spent 3 months investigating the biggest fraud case of my career, and I'd just closed it. Update 1 asterisk, the aftermath in that restaurant was a masterpiece. It was like watching a film in slow motion. The laughing faces stiffened, glasses halted midair, and panic swept in. Emily stared, her jaw slack. Laura, the divorce coach, recovered first, letting out a sharp, uneasy chuckle. "That's not funny, David," she said. "You can't just do that." "Do what?" I replied, sipping my water calmly. "Secure my wealth? Actually, I can, and I did. Yesterday was a very productive day." The party ended there. I paid the bill, the final irony. The drive home was a study in silent rage. Emily didn't speak, just stared out the window, her mind likely racing to determine if I was bluffing. At home, her polished facade crumbled, revealing the desperate, greedy person beneath. "What have you done?" she hissed as the door shut. "I followed the advice I give my clients," I said, loosening my tie. "When you suspect a long-term premeditated fraud, you act swiftly to minimize losses." "Fraud," she shrieked. "I'm your wife." "Are you?" I countered. I walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a thick binder, and dropped it on the table. It was my case file. "This suggests you're a co-conspirator in a scheme to defraud me of my assets upon ending our marriage, a marriage you've been planning to dissolve for over a year." I opened the binder, revealing an invoice from Laura's consulting service, charts tracking the flow of my money to her lavish lifestyle, and 100 pages of time-stamped group chat messages. I let her read. Her face shifted from fury to pale terror as she saw her own words, her plans laid bare. "How did you get this?" she whispered. "I'm an investigator, Emily," I said. "It's my job. You were so busy planning the perfect crime, you never considered you were married to the perfect detective." The fight lasted hours. She cried, screamed, denied, blamed Laura, her friends, even me. It was a classic performance from someone caught red-handed. By morning, she was gone, having packed a bag and fled to her parents' house. Her lawyer called my sister, my lawyer, that afternoon, triggering the second, glorious phase of consequences. My sister is a legal predator. She didn't just confirm the assets were untouchable. She went on the attack. She told Emily's lawyer we had evidence of a conspiracy to commit fraud. If Emily fought the trust in court, we'd win and file a civil suit against her, her sister, and Laura for the $65,000 they'd stolen. Oh, I forgot to mention. My audit uncovered a side scheme where Emily and her sister used our joint credit card to buy designer clothes, wear them once, and return them. A clear pattern of fraud. Emily's lawyer, likely a small-time divorce attorney, was outmatched. Facing a top-tier law firm and overwhelming evidence, he advised her to settle. My terms were harsh and final. An uncontested divorce, no claim to my assets, and the house sold with the equity split after deducting the $65,000 she stole plus my legal fees. She'd walk away with almost nothing. Update 2, my retaliation against her friends wasn't loud, it was surgical. Laura, the divorce coach, was first. She wasn't just giving bad advice. She was operating in a legal gray zone, offering specific legal and financial strategies without a law license. I compiled a report with testimonials from her disgruntled former clients and sent it anonymously to the State Bar and Attorney General's office for investigation into unauthorized legal practice. Her business is now under scrutiny, and her career is likely finished. The other 2 friends were easier. One, Sarah, worked in PR for a family-friendly corporation. Her social media was a curated disaster of partying, drug use, and poor choices. I sent a compilation of her posts to her company's HR with a note. As a shareholder, I'm concerned about the behavior of your employees and the risk to your brand. She was fired within a week for violating the company's ethics policy. The final friend, Rachel, was married to a partner at a rival insurance firm, someone I knew professionally. Over coffee, I told him, man to man, that I'd uncovered troubling information during my divorce involving his wife. I didn't share the group chat, just suggested he hire a forensic accountant. I don't know the outcome, but weeks later, he wasn't wearing his wedding ring. In a month, Emily's entire circle was dismantled, unemployed, investigated, or facing their own divorces. They turned on each other, blaming Emily for bringing a monster into their lives. She was utterly isolated. Final update, it's been 3 months since that dinner. The divorce was finalized last week. After selling the house and deducting the stolen $65,000 and legal fees, Emily walked away with less than $10,000, a meager return for 3 years of what she thought was a brilliant scheme. She's living with her parents, whose struggling business took a second mortgage to cover her legal fees and a lawsuit from Uncle Ron against her sister. Their family is on the brink of financial collapse, their social standing ruined. Emily called me last week from a blocked number, the call I'd been waiting for. She was sobbing, saying her life was over, apologizing, begging for help. I let her speak. When she finished, I said, my voice cold, I'm an investigator, Emily. My job is to evaluate risk, and you, your family, your friends, you're the riskiest investment I've ever encountered. A normal person would walk away. I don't. I write off bad investments and ensure they're never listed again. You thought this was a game, but it was a claim, a fraudulent claim against my life. I spent 3 months doing my job, investigating, documenting, and denying that claim with extreme precision. The difference between you and the criminals I deal with is they usually know when they're caught. I hung up and blocked the number. I'm in my new apartment now, smaller, simpler, a place of clarity and reason. I sold the old house. It held too many ghosts. My life is calm, mine alone. My revenge wasn't a single moment of glory. It was a meticulous, thorough audit of a corrupt network. Emily and her friends thought they were clever, players in a grand game. They were amateurs trying to con a man who dismantles professional fraudsters for a living. They thought they could take everything. They never realized my most valuable asset is something they'd never comprehend. The unshakable certainty that, in the end, the ledger always balances, and I'm the one who balances it.